Close your eyes for just a second and think about the last time Las Vegas actually felt like Las Vegas. Not the Vegas of hidden fees and broken elevators and a self-check-in kiosk staring back at you like a cold, dead robot. The real Vegas. The Vegas that grabbed you by the collar the moment you stepped off the plane and said, "Welcome, we have been waiting for you." That Vegas is disappearing, property by property, one bulldozer at a time. And right now, tonight, 5 more casinos are standing on the edge of that cliff. The only question left is which one falls first. Hi, my name is Michael, and this is Old Vegas Legends. Let us get into it. Number 5, the Strat, the Forgotten Orphan. At the end of the Strip, we begin our list at the very top of Las Vegas Boulevard. And I mean the very top. I mean so far north of the action that if you squint on a clear day, you can almost see Nevada becoming a different state. This is the Strat Hotel, Casino, and Tower. Now look, I want to be fair here. The Strat has always been the scrappy underdog of the Strip. It was never going to be the Bellagio. Nobody ever walked in there expecting a private butler and a Michelin-starred restaurant. The value proposition was always simple. Come for the Tower. Come for the thrill rides at the top. Come for the room rate that looks like it came from 1993. And for a long time, that was enough. But here in 2025 and 2026, that proposition is collapsing under the weight of a very specific financial trap. And if you have booked this place recently without doing your homework, you already know exactly what I am talking about, because here is the trick the Strat has perfected. You see a room advertised online for $49 a night. $49 in Las Vegas, on the Strip, and some part of your brain lights up like a slot machine hitting 3 cherries, right? That is the bait. That is the hook. That is the carefully engineered illusion designed to get your credit card number into their system before you realize what is actually happening. Because once you click book, you discover the resort fee. $49.95 per night. Yes, you read that correctly. The mandatory fee to simply exist in the room is, to the penny, almost identical to the cost of the room itself. Once you factor in Clark County taxes, that $49 room is now sitting at $110, or $115 a night. You have just paid 120% more than what was advertised. That is not a resort fee. That is a magic trick, and not even a good one. But the financial bleeding does not stop at check-in. And this is where the Strat's geographic reality becomes a genuine crisis. Because the Strat is not just far from the center of the Strip, it is stranded. It sits at the far northern end of Las Vegas Boulevard, separated from the real action by what feels like a significant stretch of pawn shops and wedding chapels. No shade to the wedding chapels, by the way. God bless every couple who got married at the Little White Chapel at 2 in the morning. That is the real Vegas spirit right there. But the point is this. You are not walking to the Bellagio from the Strat. You are not walking anywhere. Or you are hailing an Uber, and you are paying $15 to $25 each way, every single day, just to participate in the city you flew to Las Vegas to experience. Stay for 4 nights, go out twice a day, and you have easily spent $200 on transportation alone on top of that fee-inflated room rate. The bargain has evaporated before you even hit the casino floor. So, who is actually staying here? That is the question that keeps me up at night when it comes to the Strat. The Tower attraction still draws curious tourists, absolutely. The thrill rides at the top are genuinely fun. I will give them that. But the repeat visitor, the loyal locale, the retiree who has been coming back every November for 15 years, that demographic is aging out and not being replaced. And Full House Hospitality, the parent company, has shown almost no appetite for the kind of reinvestment that would attract a new generation of guests. The Strat is not in immediate danger of closing tomorrow, but it is in the slow, grinding danger of becoming irrelevant. And in Las Vegas, irrelevance is just the long way to the same destination. Number 4, Bally's Las Vegas, the casino with no soul. If the Strat's problem is geography, Bally's problem is something far harder to fix: identity. Let me take you back, because this one has some history worth understanding. Bally's Las Vegas opened in 1973 as the MGM Grand, which at the time was the largest hotel in the world. Think about that for a second. The largest hotel on the planet, right here on the Strip. That building had a soul. It had a gravitational pull. It was a destination in a city full of destinations. Then came the fire of 1980. one of the deadliest hotel disasters in American history. 87 people lost their lives. The building was eventually sold, rebranded as Bally's, and for decades it carried on, trading on its prime center strip location, a stone's throw from the Bellagio, sitting on them one of the most valuable pieces of real estate in the country. But here in 2025, Bally's is a casino that has lost the plot entirely. Caesars Entertainment, which owns the property, made the extraordinary decision a couple of years ago to essentially strip Bally's of its own identity and convert it into the new home of the Horseshoe brand. And I want to be precise here because this matters. The Horseshoe is a perfectly fine casino brand in Tunica, Mississippi, in Hammond, Indiana. In the regional markets where the Horseshoe was born and built its reputation, it makes complete sense. But on the center strip, wedged between the Bellagio and Planet Hollywood, trying to market yourself as a mid-tier regional brand is, and I say this with all the journalistic restraint I can muster, an absolutely baffling strategic decision. The guests are confused. The staff are confused. Walk the floor in 2025, and you can feel the identity crisis in the air, like that particular smell that old casinos get when the ventilation has been neglected for about a decade. You know the smell. We all know the smell. The numbers are telling a brutal story. When you hold that center strip location up against the revenue it should theoretically be generating, the gap is staggering. Properties in that corridor, with that foot traffic, what with that proximity to the Bellagio and its fountains, and the steady stream of tourists who never stop walking that particular stretch of the boulevard, should be printing money. Bally's, operating as the Horseshoe, is leaving an enormous amount of that money on the table. Meanwhile, Caesars continues to pour hundreds of millions of dollars into upgrading its flagship properties. Caesars Palace gets a renovation, the Horseshoe gets a new sign, and some confusion. The deeper problem is this. Caesars is a company that is carrying a debt load that would make your mortgage look like a parking ticket. They are not reinvesting in Bally's because they cannot afford to, and because strategically, they have decided the property's greatest value is not as an operating casino. It is as a future sale or development opportunity. It's the address is the asset. The building is just something sitting on top of it. When a corporation starts thinking about your building as something to eventually remove, that is not a renovation plan. That is a countdown timer. And right now, the Bally's clock is ticking loudly. Number 3, Treasure Island, the pirate ship that already sank. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you heard anyone say, "You know what? I really want to stay at Treasure Island"? Take a moment. Think about it. I have been asking that question to longtime Vegas visitors for months now, and the honest answer I keep getting is some version of, I stayed there once, a long time ago, which is, in the hospitality business, roughly equivalent to someone saying your restaurant was fine that one time when they had nothing better going on. Treasure Island opened in 1993 as one of Steve Wynn's masterworks of spectacle and theming. The pirate battle out front, the Buccaneer Bay show, the elaborate facade of a Caribbean pirate village. It was ambitious, it was immersive, and for a certain era of Las Vegas, it was genuinely thrilling. My parents took me there when I was a kid, and I thought it was the greatest place on earth. I was 9 years old and I was not wrong. But here is what happened to Treasure Island. It got caught in the middle. When Las Vegas made its pivot away from family-friendly thumbing in the early 2000s, Treasure Island tried to pivot with it. They brought in the Sirens, replacing the Pirates with a show that was, let us say, aimed at a slightly older demographic. They shortened the name to just TI. They tried to go nightclub adjacent, all lounge forward, adult contemporary. None of it stuck. None of it gave the property a clear, compelling identity that resonated with a specific audience and made them feel like Treasure Island was their place. And then Phil Ruffin bought it. Now, Phil Ruffin is a billionaire who owns casinos the way some people collect baseball cards. He bought Treasure Island in 2009 for roughly $775 million, and his operating philosophy since then can be summarized in one elegant sentence. Take out more than you put in for as long as possible and wait for the land to appreciate. That is not a hospitality strategy. That is an extraction strategy. And it works in a purely financial sense, right up until the moment it catastrophically does not. Walk through Treasure Island in mid-2025, and you are walking through the physical manifestation of that philosophy. The facade is still there, technically. The bones of a once spectacular property are still visible if you squint. But the investment required to bring those bones back to life, to make Treasure Island relevant again in a market that now includes Resorts World, Fontainebleau, and a dozen other properties that are spending real money to attract real guests, that investment is not coming. Because from Ruffin's perspective, why would you spend $250 million renovating a building when you could simply wait and sell the land? The gaming revenue numbers here are telling. Treasure Island consistently posts some of the lowest revenue per available room figures among major strip properties. The casino floor has been gradually contracting as the property downsizes its table game offerings to cut labor costs. The loyalty program is an afterthought. Meanwhile, the guests who are still showing up are largely doing so because of price. And when the only reason someone books your property is price, you have already lost. Because there will always be a cheaper option, and a guest who chose you purely on price will leave you the moment a cheaper option appears. Treasure Island is not dying dramatically. There is no crisis, no headline, no catastrophic event. It is dying the slow, quiet way. The way a fire dies when you stop feeding it. The heat is still there, if you hold your hand close enough. But the flame is almost out. Lot number 2, the Rio. The island. Nobody visits anymore. And now we arrive at a property that genuinely breaks my heart. Because the Rio, at its best, was something genuinely special. I want you to remember what this place used to mean to Las Vegas. Throughout the 90s and into the 2000s, the Rio was the sophisticated outlier. Off the strip, yes, but deliberately, defiantly off the strip. It was the local secret. The place where you went when you wanted something real, something with actual flavor and personality in a city that was already starting to mass produce its own aesthetic. The seafood buffet was legendary, and then there was the World Series of Poker. For nearly 2 decades, the greatest poker players on the planet converged on this building every summer. The names, the money, the energy, the prestige. The Rio was not just hosting the World Series of Poker. It was the World Series of Poker. That event gave this building an identity that money cannot simply manufacture. It was earned year by year, hand by hand, across millions of dollars of prize pools and decades of history. And then, in 2022, it was gone. The World Series of Poker moved to the Horseshoe on the Strip, and when it left, it took everything with it. The energy, the media attention, the high-value players who filled the restaurants and the rooms and the casino floor. Everything. What remained was a building sitting on the wrong side of the I-15 freeway with a suddenly hollow identity, and an ownership situation that was about to get significantly more complicated. Caesars sold the Rio to Dreamscape Companies, a real estate and hospitality firm that arrived with grand promises of renovation and renaissance. And to their credit, they did begin renovating. The Ipanema Tower got genuine work done. New carpets, new fixtures, real investment. You could see the intention. But here's the problem that no amount of fresh carpeting can solve. To fund those renovations in an environment of high interest rates and declining tourist traffic, Dreamscape took on a $176 million CPACE loan. And if you are not familiar with CPACI financing, let me explain it in terms that matter. A CPACE loan places a lien directly on the property itself, repaid through property taxes. It is not just debt. It is debt with your building as collateral. It is structured in a way that is extraordinarily difficult to restructure or renegotiate if your revenue projections do not materialize. And right now, the Rio's revenue projections are not materializing. The fundamental problem is the location. In a city built entirely on convenience and foot traffic, the Rio requires a conscious decision. Nobody walks past it on the way to something else. Nobody stumbles in. Every single guest who walks through those doors made a specific, deliberate choice to cross that freeway and go off strip. And increasingly, fewer and fewer people are making that choice. The locals who once loved this place remember what it was. They remember the years of neglect under Caesars. They remember the buffet closing. Trust, once broken in this town, is extraordinarily expensive to rebuild. Oh, you cannot renovate your way back into someone's heart. You have to earn it, slowly, one visit at a time. And that takes years the Rio's balance sheet may not have. I want to be very specific about what I'm saying here. Bankruptcy at the Rio is not a worst-case scenario. Based on the debt structure, the location disadvantage, the post-poker identity vacuum, and the sustained decline in off-strip visitor traffic, bankruptcy is becoming a realistic base case scenario. The math does not require a catastrophe to get there. The math gets there on its own if nothing changes, and so far, nothing fundamental has changed. Number 1, the Tropicana site. The ghost that does not know it is dead. And here we are, number 1. Now, I want to acknowledge something before we get into this. Some of you watching right now are going to say, Michael, the Tropicana is already closed. Why is it on the list? And that is a fair question. It deserves a direct answer. The Tropicana Las Vegas closed in April of 2024, ending 67 years of continuous operation on the corner of Tropicana Avenue and Las Vegas Boulevard. 67 years. Think about what that building witnessed. The Rat Pack era, the mob money, the corporate buyouts, the renovations and the rebrands, and the desperate attempts to stay relevant across 7 decades of a city that never stopped reinventing itself. And then, in the spring of 2024, the doors closed for the last time. The building came down, and right now, as you watch this video, that corner is a construction site. The plan, as announced, is to build a new baseball stadium, a 30,000-seat MLB ballpark, the future home of the Oakland Athletics, who relocated to Las Vegas. So, why is this number 1 on a list of casinos about to close? Because the story of that corner is not finished. And what that corner now represents tells us more about the future of Las Vegas than any other single location in the city. Here is what I need you to understand. The Tropicana was not just a casino that ran out of luck. The Tropicana was murdered. Deliberately, strategically, and profitably murdered by a corporation that looked at 67 years of history, 67 years of memories that real people actually carried in their hearts, and assigned them a value of precisely 0 on a balance sheet. Bally's corporation, which had acquired the property, made a calculation. The calculation was simple. The land beneath the Tropicana, or on that specific corner of the Strip, was worth more empty and redeveloped than it was as an operating casino. The Tropicana, by the end, was generating revenue. It was not a failing property in the traditional sense. It was a profitable business that was nonetheless deemed insufficiently profitable relative to what the dirt could generate, with a different building on top of it. That is the sentence I want you to hold on to. Insufficiently profitable. Not failing, not broken, not beyond saving. Just not profitable enough for what the corporate owners had decided the land was worth. And that logic, that cold, precise, balance sheet logic, is now the operating philosophy of virtually every major Strip property. When you understand that, when you really internalize it, you start looking at every casino on the Strip differently. You stop asking, is this casino doing well? And you start asking the right question. Is this casino generating enough profit to justify continued operation relative to what else could be built here? Because that is the question being asked in boardrooms right now. Not about some distant hypothetical future, right now. About properties you have visited. About places you have memories of. About hotels where you celebrated anniversaries and birthdays and bachelor parties and retirements. The Tropicana site is number 1 on this list, not because it is the next to close. It has already closed. It is number 1 because it is the proof of concept. It is the moment that demonstrated, beyond any possible doubt, that no casino on this Strip is too historically significant, too beloved, too iconic to be erased if the numbers say the land is worth more without it. The Mirage told us it was possible. The Tropicana proved it was policy, what this really means. So let us step back for a moment and look at the full picture, because what we have just walked through is not a random collection of 5 struggling properties. This is a pattern, a deliberate, systematic, corporate pattern that is playing out across the entire face of Las Vegas. What happened to this city? What actually happened? The answer, if you are willing to hear it plainly, is consolidation. When 2 corporations, MGM Resorts and Caesars Entertainment, came to control the majority of major Strip properties, competition effectively died. And when competition dies in any industry, the incentive to earn customer loyalty disappears with it. It's the old Las Vegas ran on loyalty. It ran on the idea that if you treated people right, If you gave them good odds and a clean room and a free drink and a smile from someone who actually remembered your name, they would come back year after year for decades. They would bring their kids would bring their kids. The relationship between this city and the American middle class was a genuine, mutually beneficial partnership that lasted for generations. That partnership has been replaced by an extraction model, and the 5 properties on today's list are simply the most visible casualties of that transition. The Strat is being abandoned by geography and neglect. Bally's is suffocating under an identity crisis that its corporate parent has neither the will nor the financial flexibility to resolve. Treasure Island is being quietly drained by an owner who has already decided the land is the real asset. The Rio is trapped on the wrong side of a freeway, with a debt structure that may be mathematically unsurvivable. And the Tropicana has already been erased, standing now as the clearest possible evidence of where this all leads. These are not isolated stories. They are chapters in the same book. And the book is about a city that traded its soul for a stock price. I started this channel because I believe the story of Las Vegas is worth telling honestly. Not the glossy brochure version, not the press releases, the real story, told with real data for the people who actually love this city and remember what it was capable of being at its best. The Vegas of the 1970s and 80s, and even the 90s, was not perfect. Nothing is. But it had something that is extraordinarily hard to manufacture and extraordinarily easy to destroy. It made people feel welcome, not processed, not extracted from. Welcome. That feeling is not gone forever. It has just been pushed to the suburbs, to the locals' casinos, to the corners of this city where the corporations have not yet arrived with their resort fees and their self-check-in kiosks and their sensitivity-optimized mini-bar sensors. But the Strip, the boulevard that the whole world associates with the words Las Vegas, is being hollowed out, one demolition at a time. If this story matters to you, if you want to stay informed as these situations develop, please subscribe to Old Vegas Legends. Leave me a comment below and tell me which of these 5 you think goes down first. I have my own answer. Well, I would love to hear yours. I am Michael. This has been Old Vegas Legends. Watch your wallet out there, and remember the city we love.